Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Developing the Leader Within. I have a special guest with us, and September is Entrepreneurship Month. I've dedicated this to veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs with a purpose and a reason. But today we have Flossie Hall from AMSE, and she's going to explain a little bit about that. Flossie, welcome to the show, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I've been following you for a long time, and I know we've been supporting each other for a long time on LinkedIn, so I'm super excited to be here.
Outstanding. Listen, I know that the subject and the flavor of the month is entrepreneurship. A lot of people have a lot of questions about entrepreneurship. What leads folks to be in there? How people manage to do 100 jobs for one pay, right? Because that's usually what we switch over. We go from doing one job with one pay to, wow, sometimes 20 jobs for little pay. And so it's a mind. It's a mind. The entrepreneurship road, you have to have the mind, you have to have the heart for it. And but more importantly, I like to highlight the things that go on before you were an entrepreneur, like military spouse. So you're a military spouse to one of my Navy brothers, say a fellow sailor. And I would just like for you to take some time, first of all, to introduce yourself and also to give us what the military spouse life is like.
Yeah, so my husband, he always yells at me when I say he's in the Navy because he's a CB. And he's like, I'm a CB first. So he's always making sure that I say that correctly. But yeah, he's been in almost 18 years now, and we have 4 kids. So it's definitely a lifestyle as a military spouse. You either thrive or survive, but I feel like 99% of it you're surviving. So about 6 years ago, I had come to the long end of an education road, which is what most military spouses do, right? You have a hard time finding employment, so you go to school. And I know a lot of military spouses are so well educated because you can stay home with the kids and you can go to online school. So most military spouses end up with master's degrees and PhDs or multiple master's degrees, but they're unemployed because they don't have the opportunity to actually go out and find the employment or work in the fields because of the demands on their time, because of their family, or because they're only at a duty station for 2 years and then they need to move and they're exhausted, or a company just doesn't want to invest in them at a high level position for what they're worth. How many corporate level positions are there for somebody when you're like, well, do I really want to invest in a 6-figure job and somebody that I'm going to lose in 1 to 2 years? It's really, really difficult. So I spent 10 years getting 2 bachelor's degrees and took my MCATs and really wanted to go to medical school. And my husband was getting deployed again. And it's the typical life of a military spouse, like feeling defeated and deflated. Like, when is it going to be my turn? And it's the life, and you just feel like you're supporting your career or your service members' career constantly. Like, they're getting awards and accolades and they're getting promoted and they're constantly feeling fulfilled and they're moving on up, and you're chasing them all over the country, and you're at home and you're like, when do I get that chance? And I ended up starting a company on accident instead. And I got a little taste of the entrepreneurship life. And I was like, oh, you mean I don't have to like wait for somebody to pay me? I can pay myself? What is this whole thing?
I love that because it really takes us down the road. And thank you for sharing your experience. As you was talking, it made me jog in my head, my wife, right? And I served 26 years. So imagine, just extending that another 8 years for you. It's something that is a challenge. And you mentioned unemployment, which is very, very important. Just because you don't have the corporate experience does not mean that you don't have the actual knowledge. And so for those that are out there listening and are asking whether, this is a military spouse or this is a veteran, consider the fact that they've done some investment in the background that a lot of people are taking for granted, or making it short of what it should deserve. Just consider that when you're looking to hiring veterans and military spouses, because they really put in the work education wise. So you say you got the taste for entrepreneurship, and I tell you what, there's nothing like working for yourself, although it's probably the hardest job ever. Tell us a little bit about that first experience.
Yeah, well, it is the hardest job ever, but when you're a military spouse, you have zero control. You feel like you have zero control over everything. You have no control over where you live and where you go and your timelines and you feel like you're lost in this hurricane. And entrepreneurship, I finally felt like I had like a tiny bit of control over something in my life. And you start to get a little bit of resentment towards your service member when you feel beat down for so long, and nothing to his fault. I love him, I adore him, I want him to succeed, I want him to feel fulfilled. But when you don't feel fulfilled yourself, that resentment seeps over and it causes problems. And for a military spouse, me and you talked about this a little bit before the podcast, it causes service members to get out because their spouse is not happy, and their spouse says, I can't find a job, I can't find fulfillment, I can't find passion, I can't find happiness. You need to get out of the military so we can move back home and I can get roots, a job, a career, and I can find what you have. And once I found entrepreneurship, I found a bit of control because I could do what I wanted to do. I could make money doing what I wanted to do, and I could excel, and nobody else was in charge of that except for me. And as long as I worked hard and I put in the effort and the energy, I could excel as much as I wanted to. And I was a hard worker. I still am a hard worker. And I was like, oh, I'm really good at what I do, and I'm really smart. And if I put in the right pieces and I learn as fast as I can make a lot of money at this. And I could do it with my kids at home. I could do it in the carpool lane. I could do it around whatever hours I want to, and I have nobody to answer to. And once I felt that little bit of empowerment and that little bit of control, and I could see like I had something for myself, I was like, that's it. Like, why are other spouses not doing this? And then I was like, hey, I felt like I had a secret that I needed to tell every military spouse. And I was like, why are you getting a job? You need to find stuff to sell or build, or like you could go do that on your own, and you don't need to like clock in and clock out. And I just saw so many spouses, even the lucky ones, AKA who had found jobs, who were unhappy because they were so stressed out trying to like also run carpools and pick up their kids from school and still manage the household and still meet the demands of an employer at the same time, where I was like, oh, you could do this whole thing and just answer to yourself. And people would just look at me like I was crazy.
Yeah, I imagine, because we don't share that type of stuff. We um out of the 26 years that I served, not once did I hear entrepreneurship for spouses, whether it's male or female, because you have them both, but I not once, right? And so there's a picture that I can that's in my head, and it was one that you posted a while back. It was you were dressed for business, you had your phone in your hand, and your daughter was in the back with flour or it's cooking or something, right? And I when I saw that picture, I said, man, that is the ultimate picture of what it looks like to be a military spouse, a businesswoman, working all the angles of life and family, all that in one snapshot. And I love that picture. But you mentioned, you spread the word, and you got the weird faces, right? And that's the funniest thing, is that you'll either get the face of, come on, no, that's too much work, or what? Where can I go
Yeah.
sign up and get this done? So you started down the entrepreneurship route. How was your first company?
So I dabbled a little bit. I had started a blog, like a Facebook page about, chronicling my weight loss journey called Healthy Mama. And I told people how to eat better and exercise and meal prep. And I had amassed like a following. And then I sold workout tanks. So I made some money doing that. And then I was like, oh, I could just, you know, do this. And then I made some e-cookbooks, and I was like, oh, I don't even have to do like sell a physical thing. I can just like email them this thing. Like once I do the work, it's done. And then I started meal prepping out of my house. And then that was where the real, like, I found a real big gap in the market. And I started to really dabble in entrepreneurship. But I have degrees in biology and psychology, and there is nothing about business or mass food production in what I've ever learned in life. And but within just a few months out of my home kitchen, I was making like 800 meals a week out of base housing with just a few other spouses. And we were doing it with coolers and a Craigslist refrigerator in my garage, and a lot of grit and ingenuity. And there was just a demand and a need for what I was doing. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go run a commercial kitchen. And people thought I was nuts. I'd never even stepped foot in a commercial kitchen until the day I signed a lease on one. And people are like, what? And I was like, oh, I'll figure it out. And you know what? That's what entrepreneurship is. It's about leaping and building the plane on the way down. And I burned myself 1,000 times. And, you know, I figured it out. But we did 7 figures in revenue our first year in business. And I failed 1,000 ways possible, but I also had 1,000 ways that I succeeded in that business. So just like you said, that photo where, you know, I'm chopping Brussels sprouts in my, you know, beautiful blazer and my beautiful business attire, but my daughter's throwing flour up in the background. Like I had a room where, you know, kids could bring their iPads, and I hired 100 military spouses with flexible work options. They were allowed to take their kids on delivery routes. And then their spouses, which were active duty members, supplemented their income by working in the kitchen on the weekends. Like we made so much impact by seeing gaps in our community. And I said, why are these businesses not hiring spouses? Why are they not giving them flexible options? Why are they not allowing kids at work? And you know what? I just did it. I fixed it. And then all of a sudden, news and media outlets were like, this local company is hiring 100 military spouses. And I was like, why are other companies not doing this? This shouldn't be news. It should be the standard. And the more I did it and the more I felt empowered to make changes in my community, I said, you know, this shouldn't be news. It should be regular practice by other companies. The more I felt the need to get louder and louder about what I was doing.
No, I love it because you know, you mentioned something that we're used to doing. We saw something and we fixed it. And a lot of times it seems like corporate America has a shortage in fixing things because it has not changed, right? It wasn't like that when I went in the military. It wasn't like that when I got out, right? So it wasn't like they got more prepared every year that I served, they were getting even more prepared so that when I got out, bam, I'm in a job. No, that's not how it went. We still leverage on who we know. We still leverage on, you know, archaic things like the resume, because I'd say that is just a snapshot of me. If you take a time to talk to me for an hour, you'll say I didn't put enough. Right. And so,
Yeah.
you know,
I
so
laughed after my first company. I said, after that, I was like, okay, I launched a consulting company, but a couple of people wanted a resume. And I was like, what do I put on this resume? I went from being a stay-at-home mom who worked in like random part-time jobs to being the CEO of a 7-figure company I built from scratch. What is supposed to go on this resume? Can you tell me what that's going to look like? I'm curious, but also I have like an EMT license. I have a bachelor's degree in biology. I did genetic research. This thing looks like puzzle pieces from 17 different puzzles. Like nobody's going to understand what this looks like. Like, what is a resume going to, can I just talk to somebody? Just tell me can I talk to somebody?
and you're just absolutely right. When I separated and retired from the military, you know, the first thought in my head was, hey, go back to what you know, go to a federal entity and they'll hire you. They'll, you know, at least you're back in the fly. It didn't work. It didn't work. Right. So I get out, and the first person to hire me, which happens to be the last interview for the month of September, the person hired me because they wanted, and this is what they said, we want a command sergeant major type person at our company. So what did that take? It took a military person to become a CEO to understand what that means. Regardless of your resume, we know what you do and we want it here. And that's how I got hired.
That's
No,
crazy. And it doesn't even matter sometimes. Like, and that's what military spouses face when you walk into a career center. They say, fill out a resume, let's get you a federal job. And it's like, there's got to be more options than this, right? Like, the world is so rapidly changing that there's freelancing options and remote jobs and entrepreneurship. Like, how is this still the way of the world? Like, you walk into a base and it's like, fill out a resume. Here's a resume workshop. Here's a federal job workshop. Like, nah, this is not like, what about Upwork and Fiverr and like all these great programs? Like, no, like there's got to be better ways than this.
and there are, and you're proving that. So thank you for actually, you know, going down the road of entrepreneurship, because you've opened a lot of eyes. And I'm sure that a lot of those interviews that you get at media sources and platforms validated the fact that we are viable to our community way more than you are giving us credit. And you open that conversation. So I thank you. So now you got your first company, you're making 7 figures, you're getting burned 1,000 times. And now comes, you know, this AMSE. Tell me about that.
So AMSE is my real passion. And after my first company, I went on to do consulting, and I found love in education. And I worked for some accelerators and some incubators and consulted. And AMSE was built out of a need. It was another need. The more we consulted and the more we advocated, they kept asking us like, hey, we have these veteran entrepreneurship programs. We want to add military spouses to them. Can you come help us? And we kept saying, you know, this just doesn't work. Like, military spouses are not veterans. Like, we love our veterans, but military spouses are living an active duty lifestyle. They're 94% female. They're not building the same types of businesses. You know, veterans traditionally still have a spouse at home taking care of the family. Veterans are traditionally building these types of businesses. Spouses are photographers and freelancers and marketers and, you know, business consultants and yoga teachers. And like, they're not traditionally going after venture capital funds. And they're not like, this doesn't fit. And the more that we consulted, the more we said, spouses kind of need their own thing. And instead of fitting them in a veteran box, we went and built a military spouse box. So we went and built AMSE, which is the Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs, which is specifically for military spouses who want to start, launch, and build their business. So we took a bunch of curriculum that we were already building, and we said, how would a military spouse need to learn from day one, ideation? Like, I'm just thinking about it and I've never even heard the word entrepreneurship. How would I start? What does success look like to you? Is it just making cupcakes out of your house so you can pay for soccer lessons? Or is it building a 7-figure company with a global name? Like, let's work you through it from start to finish, but let's really focus on our community. They need to build scalable businesses. They need to have really core pillars in place, but they also need to have businesses they can move with them, which means building a business from a laptop, building it from location to location. They need to take it from San Diego to DC to Germany and do it frequently. So let's teach them these things and make sure their businesses are PCSable. Make sure that they're building, you know, national and global networks to rely on, building national and global networks of customers. And how do you find them and how do you lean on them? It's not a brick and mortar business. It's not a business in your backyard. It's not a government contracting business. It's not a, you know, 90% of the time, it's not a VC backed business. Like, let's teach these spouses how to build a business, to have a career, and bring income and financial stability to their families. And that's what we did. So we banded together and figured out and built an online membership with education and curriculum and technology and resources and partners. And we're building it and flying it with people in the back.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, I've been watching, you mentioned early on, we've been in contact throughout the year. Back and forth supporting each other's posts. So I've seen it go from, hey, this is an idea. Hey, this is going on. Hey, look what happened. I've seen the membership numbers rise and you guys celebrate, and I've been celebrating with you. But you know, you mentioned something that's so key to the military spouse, yeah, it's, entrepreneurship is an option, but get something that's you're able to move with. And now, like the current condition that we're in, more than ever, has it never been more important to be able to do something off of your laptop and be able to move with it, because we just can't go to places. If there's some places that are open, it's only open for certain amount of time. You have so many restrictions now that unless you build something that's mobile on your laptop that you can do it from anywhere, it's having a hard time. And I live here in Orlando, Florida, and I see the updates from the newspaper every day. Oh, this storefront has closed. Oh, this building is shutting down. Oh, this company is folding, because they could not implement fast enough something to recover from the instant, stop, nobody move, you can't do this. And having that rolled into the way you guys are developing the military spouse, and I love even more that you are focusing on the military spouse, because we often do make the mistake of just clumping them into the veteran conversation, and it's not like that. So moving with your business, being able to do it from your laptop is it's almost critical nowadays. And I'm thinking for the near future, that's going to be the standard. So
And we saw that honestly before COVID. We launched this prior to COVID. We launched it November of last year. And another thing that we saw was that most programs out there were in-person programs. And we said, well, spouses aren't always located in San Antonio and DC and San Diego. Spouses are located all over the world. They're in Alaska and Guam and Hawaii and Germany, and they need to have access to these programs and education and support. So we built our program virtually. So our education's virtual, our master classes are virtual, our curriculum's virtual. So we did it prior to COVID, and then we taught them how to build virtual businesses. We did that prior to COVID. So then when COVID hit and we were preaching these things to big organizations, they didn't understand us. And we said, this is what's necessary. And this is 2020. This is the future of work. And we know spouses building 7-figure businesses virtually. We've done it and we're doing it. And I can tell you 5 right now that have 7-figure virtual businesses. And they're like, well, we weren't sure. They weren't sure and they didn't understand it. And then COVID hit, and then all of a sudden they went, we get it and we understand now, and you figured that out. And we said, yeah, we know, we got it, but come over here and we'll tell you what we're doing. We'll let you in on the secret, because there's all these tools and communication tools and project management and online courses. And if you're a yoga teacher, you can teach online yoga to kids all over the world. And if you're a teacher but you struggle getting your teacher certification from state to state, you can start an online tutoring business and teach students all over the world. And we've been teaching spouses this for a long time. And then COVID hit, and then the rest of the world was struggling to catch up with that concept, where military spouses have been doing this for a long time.
outstanding. I'm so happy to hear that. And to speak to your entrepreneurial mind, it's what you can think and see down the road that you can implement now, because that's really what happened. Those that were able to see a shift in the environment, and the need, right? Because I think we've needed flexible working conditions for a long time. This has just validated the fact that, hey, you can do it. A lot of companies was like, no, we can't. Well, guess what? Everybody has to. And now you have to, like, hey, oh, okay. If you didn't pivot, or that's a big buzzword now, but if you did not adapt to the current situation, then you'll be on the next newspaper, right? Being shoveled off as a closure. And as heart-wrenching as that is, because I know there's people tied to that, you have to be able to see these things coming forward. So we covered your military spouse background. We went through your first company and AMSE, which is doing great things. Let's talk a little bit about leadership, because you're in the leader seat, right? So tell us a little bit of the things or tips that you can give us to share with people that are actually thinking about entrepreneurship, what should they be looking for before they go take that plunge?
Well, so becoming an entrepreneur is scary. So one of the biggest things I see is don't be afraid to take the leap. A lot of people have analysis paralysis. So you can set up some core pillars and make sure you're validating your business idea, putting some core things in place, but eventually you have to take the first step or it's never going to happen. But stick to one idea. Too many entrepreneurs are idea junkies. They jump from idea to idea to idea before actually making anything successful. So I always say land and expand. Pick one thing and really make it work. Like work really, really hard to make it successful. Even after that buzz wears off, because entrepreneurship is a buzz, like just work really hard on it until it's launched in the atmosphere. And then when you're making a lot of revenue and it's doing really well and you have team to support it and it's flying, then you can launch something else off of it. So I always say land and expand. But then surround yourself with good mentorship. Nobody in business can survive without mentors. So even though, you know, we're leading an army of military spouses behind us, we have mentors. We have financial mentors, legal mentors. We have investor mentors. Like we have mentors surrounding us every day. And I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't reach out to somebody for a question or I don't have my hand up going, I don't know that. Like I need help with that because I'm constantly learning. You have to be open to learning and you're going to learn every day, but surround yourself with good, trusted people. And part of being a good leader is learning and continuing to learn and not always being right. But you also have to lead from the front and lead by example. So everyone asks why AMSE is a for-profit company, because we felt very, very confidently that as military spouse entrepreneurs ourselves, surrounded and saturated in a nonprofit space, that we wanted to be military spouse entrepreneurs, leading entrepreneurs, that you can do really great things as a social impact company and still, you know, be a for-profit company. Like there's so many great things you can do, but we wanted to set that bar high and be by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So lead from the front and set that example. So those are just a few of my tips.
Outstanding. Now, what have you learned throughout the years as a leader that you would share with other, you know, CEOs? Now, you did mention, hey, this is, if you're going towards the entrepreneurship, you need to, you know, you need to do these things. But now you're in the seat, right? Because you're filling a COO. You know, there's CEOs, and there's so many three-letter acronyms to many people in the company. But the COO and the CEO are very, very important positions in a company. What would you suggest for those that are trying to get into that seat when you start amassing people? Because you're going to have to set, you know, you said lead from the front, you're going to have to set that example. But what would you suggest folks that are going into the C-suite?
It's really hard. I didn't realize how hard it is to have the weight of what you do on your shoulders. So in all of my companies, at the end of the day, it falls on your shoulders. I had to pay payroll. I've had, you know, literally in my first company, I had over 110 employees. And if there was weeks where I had to take out a personal loan to make sure that payroll was met, because families, to feed their families, they were depending on me. So you really have to look at yourself. And when you are in the C-suite, the weight of the company really depends on you, the future of the company, the decisions of the company, and you're really in the driver's seat. So are you willing to take on the responsibilities of the growth and all that that entails, the team that's relying on you? And then here at AMSE, we have a lot of eyeballs on us and a lot of people depending on us to make change for an entire community. Can you live up to those standards, and can you walk that walk with respect, and can you do all the things that are required of you as a leader? And that means watching what you post on social media, watching the things that who you partner with, watching who you know, all those things. There's a lot that entails with being in that C-suite. And you can see that one wrong move can really be detrimental to your whole organization, even personally. So you have to be very careful for the responsibility that you take on. not just for the company, but the people that you lead within the company, and then the people that are looking up to you that depend on your company.
Outstanding advice. Flossie, thank you so much for your time. We've covered a lot of ground, and I know those listening have gotten a lot of great nuggets of knowledge. If someone wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
I think I'm all over the internet, so you can find me on LinkedIn, on Flossie Hall. You can find out more about AMSE at amse.co. And you can find me on all the social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook. AMSE is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm literally all over. Just Google Flossie Hall. It'll all come up. And please follow and support AMSE. We need all the support that we can get. And we are truly trying to make changes that make waves for the military spouse entrepreneur. So we can use all the help and collaboration that we can get on that front.
Outstanding. I'll be sure, folks, I'll be putting that into the video or the comments so you can follow and support. Flossie, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you so much for daring to lead and take on, you know, this military spouse initiative, which I think is just absolutely wonderful and so needed. And for those listening, I hope you got a lot of great information. I hope you got some insight into the life of a military spouse and what it takes to be an entrepreneur and C-suite level type of person. And for, as we always close out our session, success to you.